evening. Welcome to Space Oddities Live, and welcome to our coverage of the Artemis 1 Orion capsule splashdown, which is due to happen in, some 40 minutes. I'm joined today by Daz and Michael. How are you guys? Excited?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah? Excited?
Yeah.
It's been a while since we've been able to watch something like this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's quite a thought, really, that we haven't really seen anything like this since the days of Apollo. So it's quite an historic thing.
What we need is some people in it so that we can really say that it's happening. I just happened to notice that Astro Noodly is in Lanzarote. Well, I'll be joining you tomorrow.
Ah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, you two should meet up and...
so that's where you're
going. Yeah, it's surprising how many people I know who are actually going this week for some of them reason. Supposed to come there.
Might be.
Yeah, it's because they know I'm going to be there. Anyway, back to the show.
Well, thank you for joining us, Astro Nebula and Ian. Lovely to have you here. Just a couple of things about what we're going to witness today, because in many ways, the whole of this Artemis mission has been a test so far. A test of the spacecraft, a test of all the systems, a test of the orbit around the moon, a test of so many things. And not to be outdone, this splashdown is a test because the trajectory that the spacecraft will follow to the splashdown has never been tried before with a human-rated capsule. So let me just show you this. So what the spacecraft is going to do is show you here. Let me just make this a bit bigger so you can see it. So this is actually going to be hang on, let's just get rid of that for a second. This is going to be what they call a skip entry. So what would happen, the spacecraft will descend to around 200,000 feet, and it will briefly dip into the atmosphere and then skip across the top of the atmosphere out again up to a height of about 310,000 feet. And it will do this a couple of times and then slowly descend into a direct entry. Now, if we look at this graph, we can see that what the Apollo entry used to do was more or less directly into the atmosphere, not quite vertically. It did skip a little bit across the atmosphere, but it never left the atmosphere like the Orion capsule is going to do today. So why are they adopting this really strange trajectory? Well, the idea is that it will split the acceleration experienced by future crews so that there will be 2 points of entry, and thus each time the crew should experience no more than about 4G in acceleration, whereas with the Apollo missions they did experience a lot more than that. Secondly, it will de-accelerate the spacecraft rapidly from about 24,500 miles an hour down to just a couple of hundred miles an hour, and eventually land at about 20 miles an hour. So this is a way of slowing the spacecraft down without shocking everything too much. And thirdly, it's to split the temperature gradient so that the re-entry, which will be actually about half the temperature of the sun, can be split over a longer period. It will cool down more slowly after heating up, and hopefully protects the crew more inside. So there are lots of reasons for trying this, but this is known as a long skip entry. Also shown on this graph, of course, is an alternative, which is the short skip entry. But all of this is being done to protect the crew, to protect the spacecraft, and to introduce less stress on all the systems. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. We can actually see just a slightly better version of that. So on the left, you can see that it enters the atmosphere about 24,500 miles an hour. It skips in and out of the atmosphere like a stone skipping across the water, slows down to about 300. And at this time, it's heating up to about 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And then finally, it will come in for a final descent and use its parachutes to deaccelerate to about 20 miles an hour once it hits the the atmosphere once it hits the water. So this is what's going to happen today, about 50 miles off the coast of San Diego in California. And so far, everything is looking good. And Michael, I see you've got some lovely images there from the capsule. That's a lovely image with the Earth in the background. There have been quite a few lovely images from this mission of the Earth and the Moon.
I'd just like to say, if I can as well, it's a good day that this is happening, because today is actually the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 17 moon landing.
Is it really? God.
It is.
So it's exactly 50 years. My goodness me.
Yeah.
And here we have a message from a user on Facebook. I hope to write reports about Space Week, Science Week's Brian Cox Horizons show, and the Dan Archer Aurora show in the near future. Fantastic. I will show you previews of those articles. So yes, we'd absolutely love to see them. So let me just, we got Bernard joining us, and let's just let him in. Hi, Bernard. How are you? You're muted, by the way.
Andy, I'm afraid I'm going to have to sign off. I'm afraid I'm just going to see some.
Leaving us so soon, Michael.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
See you then.
That's okay. No problem at all. So, Facebook user, many congratulations. We'd love to see the articles before you publish them. Thank you so much. We can't hear you at all, Bernard. Well, okay, fine. Hello, Daydream Astro. Welcome. Hope you're okay. Hope you're feeling better. And so our lovely Rachel there has joined us. Let's hope that you continue to get better. And I appear to be on my own now. So let's just have a quick look at what's happening on NASA TV. We can see that they're getting the surface craft ready to go and meet the capsule. Of course, they will be bringing it back on board ship, and they've got a very well rehearsed routine worked out for how they're going to actually reclaim the capsule. It's quite involved because obviously they don't want to damage it, and they have to take all sorts of things into consideration. So that's what's happening over on NASA TV at the moment, and we are now probably about half an hour away from Splashdown, and thank you for being here. So let's welcome back, Daz, and let's get Bernard back in as well. Hi, guys.
Hello, can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yes, you're
Fantastic.
okay now. Yeah.
Fantastic.
What
Good
about
afternoon.
Daz? Daz, can you say something? No, can't hear you at all, Daz. There we are. That's better. Okay. So quite an exciting afternoon then, guys, in many ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this is like the old traditional splashdowns. Like you say, with the Apollo missions, we used to be on tender hooks when you get that blackout when they go into re-entry. And of course, we know it's a dangerous time because we lost one of the space shuttles re-entry. Things do tend to get very, very hot. And of course, I think they're also, because you were talking about the skip, Andy, they're also testing a new heat shield as well.
That's right. That's right.
They want to. So yeah, it's a fascinating way they do it. Like you say, with the skip, they come into the atmosphere, they pop back out, and then they sort of like bounce along like a stone being thrown across a pond, and then it comes down into the atmosphere. And as you said, it knocks off so much of the speed. Because I think something ridiculous. I could be wrong, and maybe somebody will be able to correct me on this. But when they first enter the atmosphere, they're doing something like 3,000 miles an hour. And by the time they've done all these little skips, it's down to sort of like between 200 and 300 miles an hour. And then the parachutes will open and really slow them down. But yes, it's a fascinating thing what they're going to be trying, and as I said, it brings back the excitement of the Apollo era. And I don't know if you can remember when Apollo 13 came, the failed moon landing. They were in silence for, I think it was about 1 or 2 minutes longer than they should have been. Of course, with everything that had happened, everybody was really on tenterhooks. I can remember that night very much when they came back. But yeah, it's all excitement, and it's nice to know that we've got back to the moon. We haven't landed, but we sent a capsule. It's done some weird orbits, which are orbits they will be using on later Artemis missions. But it was a chance to give themselves to get as much data and information as they can on about conditions for living in space and being on these missions. Because as we know, we've got mannequins on board which are wearing protective vests and suits which are gathering data, which will all be collected at the end and it'll be analysed.
That's right.
So yes, it's been a bit of a strange. Like I said, the orbits were very strange. And as we said, it's the furthest that a human-rated capsule has ever been from the Earth.
Yes, indeed.
It's a shame there wasn't any astronauts on there. But yeah, it brings back all the excitement, and it'd be nice to see this come back safely, and then we can get on and get Congress and put their hands in their pockets. Let's get this thing moving. We ain't got
I remember the Apollo 13 in the morning, that everything went horribly wrong, and I was just going out of the front door to school, and my dad, whose habit was to ensconce himself in the bathroom with Radio 4 in the mornings, just opened the bathroom door and called down and said, "Moon landing's off." And I said, "What? Why?" He said, "Don't know, listening," and then shut the bathroom door again. So so I had to wait to get to school to find out what the problem was. But it was a masterpiece of understatement that the moon landing's off. Not that they've had a big explosion on the service module.
But yeah, the story behind that interesting story in its own right. That's for another show, though. How that all happened and how they were able to keep the crew alive, and what they went through to get back. And as I said, I can remember the re-entry, and the how can I say, they were over their time of silence, and everybody was on tenterhooks thinking the worst had happened. Of course, because where the explosion happened, they didn't know whether it damaged the heat shield, and that's what they were concerned about.
Absolutely.
So, I'm bored, Bernard. We're talking about something he's too young to remember.
Okay, I'm just going to take a look at NASA TV because there's a rather interesting image they're showing, which is this. So presumably this is a view from the spacecraft. I'm not quite sure what we're looking at here.
Sorry, folks, that was my daughter.
I'm just going to I'm just going to switch the audio on for this.
Crew module separated from the European service module about 14 and a half minutes ago, right on target as it was planned, and a short raise maneuver, a 16-second firing of Orion's thrusters, oriented the vehicle, raising it just a tad so that its heat shield was at the proper orientation in the direction of travel to begin entry interface in about 5 minutes at an altitude of 400,000 feet above the Earth.
Well, there we are. So everything appears to be going okay there. We'll return to that in a little while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Andy. I wanted to add to what you've both commented on, which is for me this is like things I've read about in in books and magazines and such, and I've actually never experienced. So it's almost like going back into history. To see, what one of these capsules landing in the water, like all these archived films that I've seen, and I had a very busy weekend, and I managed to be able to rearrange some things just to be able to be here with you folks, to be able to watch
thank
this.
you for that.
No. I really want.
Yeah.
I really want to try and
Yeah, because
be
we kind of got used to them happening back in the 60s. And not just with Apollo. I mean, I remember the Mercury splashdowns before Apollo and the Gemini splashdowns. And, it became sort of, normal. It wasn't, well, it was always exciting, but it wasn't anything that we hadn't seen before,
Yeah.
And
Well,
one splashdown became pretty much like another.
We mustn't forget the SpaceX splashdowns. I mean, we get those when the crews come back, but they don't. For some unknown reason, they don't seem to hold the excitement. I mean, I think the first one did when the crew went up to the ISS and then came back again.
Yes, I think the first one was great.
It does seem, I don't know. There's something about it. I think it's because this holds so much promise to us getting back to the moon. This is why it seems to hold the excitement. And like I said, if we can just get Congress to put their hand in their pocket, get things moving a bit faster, because of course after this we've got to wait till 2024 before the next one goes up. So we've got over a year, probably 18 months before. And of course, the next one will actually have a crew on board. Again, it won't be landing, but it'll be doing orbits around the moon and then returning. Because, of course, the one thing that they couldn't test on this Artemis one was the life support, because you've got no life in the capsule. You could put animals and things like that in there, but that's frowned upon these days. But so really the European lifeboat, if we want to call it that, or intensive care unit that's going to keep them alive, hasn't really been tested.
No.
There's no point in pumping oxygen into a cabin when there's no one breathing. So you're not testing the carbon dioxide scrubbers. There's to use the toilets or all the other systems that are going to recycling water and things like that. So it's still, so when they go up in Artemis 2, there's still going to be a lot as regards living in space, and with the new capsule, the new service module that, of course, as I said, the European Space Agency was involved in. So it won't be just a case of we're going to send them up, send them around the moon. There will still be a lot to learn. So we'll be fingers crossed for that as well.
I mean, personally, I feel a bit sorry for them. They're like the Apollo 8 astronauts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, even worse for Apollo 10, wasn't it? Yeah. Apollo 10, they got so close and they thought, shall we carry on? But they deliberately underfueled the module so that they wouldn't be tempted. They wouldn't have been able to get back.
Yeah.
So, the astronauts that no one remembers, despite the amazing things they've done.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're the real adventurers.
Yes, indeed. And these were all very, very brave men who put themselves in incredible danger for the furtherance of knowledge, and we should never forget them.
It reminds me of the second Soviet to go into space, Herman. How come I forgot his name?
You see, he's forgotten already.
You remember, do you, Bernard?
I think you made your point.
It's been a long day. Look,
him, yeah.
Everyone remembers Gagarin, right?
Yeah.
But
They probably remember Laika more than him, actually.
Yeah,
probably. But Herman did he's the first one to actually spend more than 24 hours in orbit around the Earth. He's the one who was the first to eat in space and to sleep in space and to vomit in space, because he's the first one to have had space sickness and such. These are the type of people that I think are really the ones that we should celebrate, but are just lost in history. Just like
can I just interrupt you a second?
Sure.
The Apollo has the Orion has started atmospheric entry. I'm just going to show the graphic here.
Oh, fantastic!
So it's traveling at 24,667 miles an hour, 52 miles in altitude, and it's 250,000 miles from the moon, but I think we know that. That's what's happening. It's commencing its first dip into the atmosphere, and let's hope that goes well. And I'm just going to bring the sound in from NASA TV so we can hear what they're saying.
326 miles an hour at the moment. Range to splashdown, 3,125 statute miles. Again, this is a visualization of what should be happening with Orion at the moment, although we are in a blackout period that should end about 3 minutes and 15 seconds from now. Once we emerge from this first blackout period, we'll conduct the skip entry maneuver that will further dissipate heat and energy and begin a very, very dramatic reduction in the velocity of Orion as it approaches its splashdown site.
So there you are. All seems to be going well so far.
So everything's nominal, right?
Everything is nominal. Yes.
Fantastic.
And I'll just keep an eye on that just in case anything happens. But so far, so good. Yes, but you're absolutely right, Bernard. I mean, so many people have been lost to history, unfortunately. It's only certain ones that stick out. 1 second. Okay, let's just kill that. Yes, I mean, for example, everybody remembers Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, but then nobody remembers Michael Collins. He's always the third guy. Yeah. And I'm sure many people don't even realize that there was a third guy. But he had some weird experiences, didn't he? When he was going around the far side of the moon, because there were some strange noises on the spacecraft that were variously described as a distant choir singing, and lots of other things, which turned out to be thermal expansion of the metal as it cooled down, or thermal contraction of the metal as it cooled down as it went behind the far side of the moon. And there was some sort of weird resonance going on there that made it sound a bit like music. But can you imagine being that far from the Earth and that alone, and then hearing that? I mean, it must have been absolutely terrifying. And not that he would admit it, I'm sure.
Yeah, and in a way, I mean, what Michael Collins did was as dramatic, I would say,
absolutely,
as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, because he was alone in the far side of the moon, blocked from everyone's communication, and
he was arguably the most alone anybody's ever been in history.
Absolutely, yeah. And for that he should be celebrated as well. But and the other missions that carried on, and you always have the third man in the capsule.
Because I think there was also, I think he's mentioned himself, there was the possibility that he could have been coming back on his own, because it never, Apollo 11, the first moon landings, and if things went wrong, he's going to have a very lonely journey home. And of course, Nixon had his speech written for him in case things went wrong, and things like that. The story behind it and everything is, I mean, if you read the astronauts' books, they are really fascinating. And also, just as another sort of like useless fact, is they had Carl Sagan before all the astronauts flew. He would actually talk to them about the philosophical side of what was possibly going to happen to them. And of course, all of the astronauts that have come back, who have been in space, who have been to the moon, they have come back changed in some way. It's sort of like an eye opener that that is home. That is, where we live. And that's the only place we've ever known. And to see it from that distance in all its glory, it really did change people. And it changed their views about everything. And of course, there's few of them left now. That's a real sad thing.
Absolutely.
But Buzz Aldrin, of course, he's the chap who really is pushing for us to get to Mars. He's even said, now forget the moon, let's just go straight to Mars. But I think that's not going to happen, Buzz. Maybe soon.
I think I was agreeing with him quite some time ago, but I think I've come round to the sense of seeing going to the moon as the best way forward to test everything that we will need to get to Mars, rather than just embark on a voyage without doing that. Let me just show you the view from the spacecraft looking over the Earth, which is quite beautiful. Look at that.
Oh wow!
Oh!
Isn't that spectacular?
Yeah.
They
And
could
that's
do with
nice.
the window cleaner, obviously, but that's a beautiful view from the Orion spacecraft live as it descends towards the Earth, and it seems to be doing. They've lost. Yeah, that was expected, I'm sure. So there we are. So lovely view from Orion coming in towards the Earth. Yeah. So
I noticed that Ian McIntyre has pointed out that wasn't Buzz Mund's maiden name was Mrs. Moon.
Was it?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. And
really?
A Facebook user says, been researching William Anders, part of the Apollo 8 crew. He took the Earthrise shot on the fourth loop of the moon. So
that's right.
They're not all forgotten. They're not all forgotten.
By the way, Facebook user, thank you for that. Please identify yourself in the comments, because of the way that our feed from Facebook works, we only see you as Facebook user. So who have we actually got here today? We've got our lovely Rachel, of course. We got Ian, we got Dean, and who else have we got here? We got Astro Nebulae. Thank you for joining us, and you're all very welcome. And it's nice to have you here on a Sunday afternoon. It's Jonathan Powell. Hello, Jonathan. How are you? Of course it is. Nice to have you with us.
Yeah, nice to have you, as well as the usual suspects.
As well as the usual suspects. Yes. Nice.
If you have any questions, please feel free to just pop them on the comment section.
Yes, definitely. Any questions, anything that you think we might be able to answer. We don't know everything, of course.
Dave here as well, Dave Galvin. Oh, nice to see Dave. Long time no
Dave.
here.
Hi. How are you doing, Dave? Nice to have you here for this historic splashdown.
And
this has not been a mission without glitches, of course. There have been a few minor problems on the way to and from the moon. But no showstoppers, I don't think. But this was, after all, the whole point of the mission, to test everything. So you really expected everything to go perfectly first time, because these things never do. So I don't think there were any real showstoppers there, were there? They had a few.
Well, I think the one that made people's hearts skip a beat is when they lost contact with it on the when they were doing. I think it was to come in to actually start the orbit, the burn for the orbit round, to actually put it in orbit around the moon. There was a 45-minute where they lost contact with it. I think that no, they regained contact, and other than that, it's been a total success.
That was human error. That was a misconfiguration of the Deep Space Network, because what they did for this mission, they gave it a higher bandwidth so that it could transmit the video that we've seen live from the moon, and the Deep Space Network was not configured for that bandwidth. And when they switched over to the high bandwidth as they approached the moon, and the DSN just sort of fell over for a while until they realised what was happening and just flicked a switch basically.
There was a few minor things. There was the problem with the star sighting thing when they realised that they were catching flare off of the jets that adjust the attitude of the spacecraft. It interfered with that, but not enough to actually make the starfinders useless.
Absolutely.
So they were still able to get data to pinpoint where they were. It was just one of those things, because the actual cameras for these star alignment things were quite close to where the jets are. It's just there's just been some little niggles, nothing serious, and
This is not the first time, is it, Daz, that a spacecraft has been confused. Star Trek has been confused by its own maneuvering jets. There was another incident I remember. Was it with Cassini? I think it was with Cassini. They had a similar problem until they were able to work out what was happening and compensate for it. So we are now exactly 8 minutes and 38 minutes away from splashdown. And very shortly, we will be going over to join NASA Live for the final few minutes. But don't forget, if you have any comments, any questions, please put them in the live chat.
There's a question in the comments now, Andy, from Astra Nubly.
Yes, there's one here. This question, I may have missed it, but why does Orion have to dip its toes into the atmosphere and then dip back out and finally into the atmosphere and land rather than like the Apollo spacecraft? Well, basically, it's to try a new type of trajectory, which will cut down the G-forces that crews will experience. So it'll give them 2 periods of deacceleration rather than one prolonged one of high Gs. They'll have 2 periods of deacceleration, both at 4 Gs, which is, they can probably cope with without any problems. It'll also reduce thermal stress a lot on the spacecraft. And it's just basically a better and more leisurely way of coming back into the atmosphere to produce more stability for the spacecraft, fewer risks for the astronauts. And now we're going to go right over to NASA TV because I see something is happening. So we have the view of the Earth again from the spacecraft.
Ooh, is that the ocean?
Well, that's cloud above the ocean, I suspect.
All right.
Oh, and it's gone again. Oh, no, there we are. So here's the view from the recovery vessel and back to the spacecraft.
Here we go, yeah.
That is traveling fast, isn't it? The speed of that.
Yeah.
Looks like somebody's left a bit of sticky tape on the window at the top.
It's a shame we don't get the sound inside the capsule.
Yeah,
because that must be quite something.
Absolutely. Okay, let's come back to that. Yeah, so all looking good at the moment. We are just coming up to 5 minutes away from splashdown. Thank you for your question, Astronobly. Any other questions, please put them in the chat. And I suggest we now go over and join NASA TV for the final few minutes. Yes?
Yeah, and once again, I think it's great to say that the mission has been pretty much going on track as expected.
Absolutely.
2 minutes until forward bay cover jettisoning. Orion, 100,000 feet now. The spacecraft about to go subsonic. 45 seconds until forward bay cover jettisoning. Orion now at 50,000 feet.
Once again,
forward bay cover jettisoning pyros are armed.
Just wanted to say, 4 minutes, history is going to be made.
Absolutely. We're looking at the sun there from the spacecraft.
$25,000 feet.
Oh, there go the drogue chutes.
Drogues have been deployed.
These are the first two that will slow the spacecraft down considerably.
Two good drogue chutes reported by the recovery team out in the Pacific. The descent rate is right on the money. Orion's velocity now down to 282 miles an hour. Range to splashdown 1.5 miles. 10,000 feet now.
And here come the main chutes.
And we're on mains. 5,000 feet. Reefing in progress.
What a beautiful sight.
Indeed.
Three good main chutes for Orion. We have three fully inflated main chutes. Time to splash down 90 seconds.
Let's hope they cut back to a view.
Perfect descent rate reported.
And there we are.
And there it is. High over the Pacific, America's new ticket to ride to the moon and beyond now in view. Orion under its chutes descending towards splashdown. Orion in the perfect orientation for splashdown, just seconds away. (1,000 feet). Good descent rate. (500 feet).
And
Splashdown.
fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Yeah. Well, hopefully next time we see an Artemis capsule splashdown, it'll have a crew on board. So fantastic.
So, what did you think of that then, Bernard?
Yeah, look, it's really funny. It's a bit like Back to the Future in a way, because it's very reminiscent of the archive images, videos, the Apollo. So no, I think it's fantastic. I just can't wait for this program to go ahead and as you said, let's just put some crews on board and push this further. It's great.
Absolutely.
How about you guys?
Yeah, well, as Dave says in the comments, that brings back some great memories. So it really does, Dave. It's like 50 years ago, isn't it? And to see that it does bring back some amazing memories. And for us of a certain age, it's lovely to see this again, because we were beginning to think we never would. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Whether we will stick around long enough to see the splashdown from Mars, of course, is another matter. But let's hope so. Let's hope so.
Oh, they expect them to come back, do they?
I don't know. I haven't seen the contract. What's in their contract?
Of course, a lot of the work now begins because there's loads of instruments on board, been gathering data which hasn't been sent back to Earth. So as soon as they get it back on board, their people will be itching to get hold of all that data and look at it. And the dummies, I think all this data from the dummies has all got to be examined to see what sort of radiation they were exposed to and things like that. So it's so for a lot of people the work's just beginning. Once they get that back on board, that'll be fantastic.
Yes, absolutely. And a lovely comment here from Astronebulae, who quite rightly says, "This is my Apollo missions and my children's," which is absolutely true. So yes, lovely comment. And we must all do our best to inspire our children to follow this and support it in every way that they can. Because let's not forget that one of the main reasons that the Apollo missions were curtailed at Apollo 17 instead of the full program of Apollo 21 was simply that the American public lost interest in it, and they weren't getting the TV viewing figures, and the advertisers weren't happy. So once that had happened, once the American public stopped watching, then the decision was made. There's no point in continuing. So let's try not to let that happen again. But we have to try and maintain interest, all of us, and let's just not forget the magnitude of what's been achieved here today. It's the first step, but we are getting there. We are going back to the moon, and the next few years are going to be incredibly interesting. And of course, we would like you all out there to share that journey with us. And thank you very much for being here today. So I think, unless anybody wants to any final thoughts, I think we'll curtail things for today.
Well, I just think that really we need to get the press involved, get all the scientists out there, sprouting all the news and what the benefits are, get people's excitement going, because the future of mankind depends upon space travel in the end. So I don't want to leave it on a negative note, but you've got to be realistic. If we want to survive as a species, we're going to have to go outwards. So, but anyway, thank you everyone for joining us. That was quite exciting.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you very much for being here, Jonathan. It's our absolute pleasure. We will continue to cover things like this because, we're all so excited about what we're going to see in the next couple of years. And there are so many missions that we're going to be able to bring you live. And we're all excited to be here and sharing it with you. And we hope you'll keep with us on this journey. And Astronebulae, enjoy your tea. Thank you for being here.
Yeah,
and to everybody else who's joined us here today, we didn't expect to get this many people joining us on a Sunday afternoon. So thank you very much indeed for being here. And don't forget, we'll be live again tomorrow night for our normal show, 8:00 UK time, here on Space Oddities, and we'll bring you more interesting stuff tomorrow. And Dave says, yes, the capsule is the right way up and floating. Let's just have a final look at the capsule before we leave you. So it is up the right way. The orange flotation bags on the top. So they are at the pointy end of the spacecraft, and as ever, pointy end up is good. So yes, everything appears to be well, and the spacecraft will soon be recovered onto the ship and taken back to port. So thank you all for being here. Take care of yourselves. Have a lovely Sunday evening, and we'll see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. UK time for our normal Monday show, which we're always looking forward to bringing you. So from Bernard, Daz, and myself, Daz, have a great holiday in Lanzarote. Daz is in a hotel en route to Lanzarote. Have a great time, and we'll see you soon. And don't do anything I wouldn't do. And you can meet up with Astro Nebulae. Yeah, you two should meet up for a drink and get some photos. We'd love to see that. So make it so. So there we are. All right then, guys.